Welcome to Bringing IP to Life. I'm Anna from Amanya IP and Amanya Design, and I'm joined by my guests to talk about IP. We're going to hear people's stories of their creativity, business, and entrepreneurship. Intellectual property can be a really dull subject until it becomes personal. This is aimed to help see the relevance of IP in everyday life. Welcome to the show. So welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with my youngest sister, Caroline Brewin, and we're talking about her business, and she has a business called Brain Power Coaching, where she combines confidence with neuroscience and all things in between. So welcome back, Kaz.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so in the first part of the show, we talked about the journey of your career taking you across the world and 3 continents, and how COVID was part of kickstarting you into your entrepreneurship, which you actually probably would have done anyway, but it gave you a fast forward, didn't it? So let's just listen to a little snippet of the show from today.
And there's something called hybrid publishing, which is a bit in between. So what hybrid publishing is it's they're doing a lot of the legwork for you. So I wanted to do the hybrid side because I wanted someone to do the painful stuff and to get it right. However, I wanted to retain full control over everything of the book.
Well, when we were talking about it, you were saying about, the whole issue of intellectual property and, whether you could retain it if the publisher, you went to them and whatever, they took the ownership of that publishing side. So Kaz, let's hear a little bit more about your movement into becoming an author, because you're just about to bring out your own book, but you've been a guest author with another book before now. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So as in my banking career, I think I mentioned I was a chief of staff and also kind of led lots of different teams. And I think as part of that, you have to learn how to communicate. And certainly from a chief of staff perspective, comms is a really important part. So I think comms has always been something which, being able to really nail points, bottom line things, and get things across to people in a way that is going to be engaging was something which was really important to me. In terms of the book, it was actually a friend of mine who I think I've always been kind of coaching people or whatever in some form. And a friend of mine, she bought the book, You Are a Badass, by Jen Sicario. And she said, oh my goodness, this is you in an American accent. She's like, you have to write a book. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I bought the book and I was like, yes. And the interesting thing was, it came back to that point I made earlier. It was all of the good stuff, but none of the why. And so what my book, Confident is, it's that good stuff in terms of the encouragement and the empowerment, but what I bring into it is, and so what, and what is the why underneath that? What is the neuroscience that backs that up, and how can you use neuroscience tools and techniques to help? So I also I've read so many books. Some of them are behind me, and I just have always devoured books on, whether it's self-help or, the neuroscience side, anything about the brain, business books, self-improvement. I was lying on a sunbed one holiday, and my friends were reading Maeve Binchy, and I'm reading Why People Fail. My current book is The Science of Evil, which my husband thinks is hilarious. So I love all of that kind of thing. And I also listen to podcasts constantly as well. So I think if there's something which, my brain loves learning. And I think it's really enjoyed learning about something I'm passionate about. And I mentioned that I had done applied neuroscience training. So the chap, this was the book, Brains Inspiring Business,
Right.
which
Yes.
was the first one I have a chapter 1 in. It has 14 different authors in it. And so I was asked if I would do a chapter for that. So that was that was published last year. Was it the end of it was the year before. Time rushes past. And I got some good feedback from that. So I had a few people saying, I really enjoyed your chapter, and it felt really relatable. And so I was like, right, well, okay, let's do it. So my book, Confident, which is here, it's all about that, how you can have that confidence in yourself. And it is hopefully coming out in January. But it's basically a roadmap to transform your mindset and live with courage and authenticity. And there's 4 key features of it, which I think are different to other books. So first of all, it's having neuroscience as your secret weapon.
Yes.
In a really simple, digestible way.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of frameworks in there. I love a framework. I think that's so helpful for people to have ways and actual models they can use to solve things.
Yes.
So, for example, as an introvert, how can you be confident as an introvert? I have a model, Quiet, which is an acronym for a few different steps that people can use, even as an introvert, to show they're confident. And how to master life's big moments as well. So we cover divorce, motherhood, menopause, and redundancy in the book. And so how can you be confident even through those ups and downs? And then there's lots of interviews. So there's 13 different interviews with all sorts of people from different walks of life. The first Black woman on who is on the Golf PGA Tour in the UK, a Wallaby captain, a guy who so Wallaby rugby captain, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, a guy who was who runs the Top Gun fighter jets for the UK Army, Navy, and all of the armed forces. The first woman on the board of Marks and Spencer's. So a whole range of people with such amazing different learnings about confidence, what that journey look like, and how you can navigate it. And then it's exercises, cheat sheets, ways that people can kind of read the information, summarize the information, and then really integrate it as well. It's also in color, so it's nice and eye-catching and easy to remember, because that's what I like to.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm with you there, Kaz. I'm with you. So, Kaz, with the rise of self-publishing these days, especially through Amazon, which makes it much more simple, many people are venturing into the whole area of self-publishing. So we were chatting when I was last seeing you about you choosing the route you've gone down, which is like a hybrid version. So talk us through why you came to that decision.
Yeah, so I mean, again, self-publishing is something which is a fascinating area. I've learned so much over the past few months. I think the thing is with publishing is that you just have to be a bit careful, because there are different ways that if you're working with a publisher, you have to be quite careful in terms of the agreements that you have. So some publishers, the author retains ownership of the copyright to the book. And so then the author grants the publisher license to publish and distribute it. And that's kind of traditional, but at the same time, I think you can get caught in a situation where actually the publisher might you might end up inadvertently, or just not realizing that you're transferring ownership to the publisher. For example, so J.K. Rowling, she was very clever in terms of how she managed, how she published Harry Potter.
Right.
She obviously realised how good it was,
Mm-hmm.
and retained significant ownership versus other authors on all of the copyright, but all the merchandising. And I mean, wow, what is Harry Potter now in terms of the overall brand and global brand that it is? And so there is a danger with a publisher that they could end up with more of the rights of your intellectual property and your book, and even just from a control perspective, what they're telling you
Right.
to add or not add to it. So
Mm.
that's a bit of a danger. So in self-publishing, essentially, you own the intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it all yourself. And there's something called hybrid publishing, which is a bit in between. So what hybrid
Right.
publishing is it's they're doing a lot of the legwork for you. So they have the infrastructure in place. So they're saying, right, you're going to have a copy edit, and then you have typesetting, which is all the formatting,
Okay.
and then we're going to have a book cover. So they might help you do your book cover.
Right.
And then they make sure it's all in the right format. They'll put it on Kindle format, and they'll put it on Amazon, and they'll publish it for you to all the different platforms. So
Right.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. So all of those different platforms where people can buy books.
Mm-hmm.
You also, anytime you write a book, there has to be a copy that gets sent to the British Library. And
Okay.
that's kind of the central source of books.
Right.
And that's part of why you don't have to register a book in the UK, because that's the British Library have a copy, they know it's yours.
Okay.
Whereas in the US, I haven't looked into this in a lot of detail, but it looks like you need to register that as your property in the US. So I think it's one of those things that I wanted to do the hybrid side because I wanted someone to do frankly, the painful stuff and to
That's
get it right. I could have done it, but you know what? It's like, where is my time best spent? It is not spent trying to figure out how that works and getting it wrong.
Yeah.
However, I wanted to retain full control over everything of the book.
Yes.
And I mean, some might say, well, these guys know what they're doing. There's a reason why they do it. Absolutely fair.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think for me that was really important. And I mean, look, time will tell, right, whether or not that's the right
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking about it, you were saying about, the whole issue of intellectual property and, whether you could retain it if the publisher, you went to them and whatever, they took the ownership of that publishing side. So I think the hybrid route does give you that ability to maintain what you created without you thinking, hold on a minute, all the stuff that's valuable is now out of my control, which is not what you want, right?
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think this is where you need to, it depends on the contract that you have with the publisher, obviously. But the problem is with publishing is it's such a chicken and egg, because publishers really don't. There's so many people writing books. They don't necessarily want to have a new person. They want to have people who are maybe you're an influencer, so they know you've got a really strong following already, and therefore fine, write the book. But new people, it's very difficult to get a publishing deal. However, if you can't get a publishing deal, how can you ever be someone that they would recognize anyway? So that's why, I mean, hybrid and self-publishing has made such a massive difference in terms of how people can operate and get out there in the world of publishing, which is amazing.
If you'd like to know more about intellectual property or IP, check out the Amanya IP website at www.amanyaipcourses.com. Courses vary from general basic understanding about IP for adults, young people and students, through to professional courses and courses for the USA market. The courses are aimed to help young people, students, designers, artists, business owners and entrepreneurs become IP smart to enable them to protect their dreams. So Kaz, that writing the book is just one part of this. So how are you going about letting people know that you've done it, and what routes are you taking to make it get out in the open and publicize what you've created?
My goodness, it is one mammoth project plan in Asana. I mean, this is the thing. I think another part of having a publisher is that they don't necessarily market for you. So that was one of the things which I thought, well, do I go out and do I pitch my book? And then quite a few people said, well, you can't even rely on them to do the marketing. Maybe they will if it's a big author for them. So the marketing piece is enormous. But so from a social media perspective, we've been doing, it's really been probably a 6-month lead time into the book being published itself. And, so that's, just giving people behind the scenes information,
Right.
little snippets. So from all the interviews, we do snippets from those, whether it's images or quotes, or things in our blog. I have a weekly blog, which, so we're giving people some of that information as we go. It's everything from all over our social media in different forms. And then, just talking to lots of people similar to yourself, getting it out there. I was on a radio show on Friday and talking about some of the key points from it. So I think that the nice thing is it's I don't feel like I need to sell it, because there's so much value that people can get from it. Interestingly, we've been running some research, and we've had it's now over 20,000. When we ran the data for our research report, it was 17,000 people who've done it. And from that, we've got so much interesting information about confidence and about comparing men and women with confidence. So that's all in the book as well. And that's a really interesting part of what we then include and can talk about in our marketing.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that? What's that study that you've done?
So like I said, 17,000 people. We've asked them a number of different questions all around confidence. So things like, do you speak up in meetings? Have you lost confidence since you had a career break? I'll give you a few stats. So one of the questions, do you speak up in meetings? So over 77% of people don't speak up in meetings because they doubt themselves.
Right.
77%. And 91% of people question themselves and second guess their decisions. And 90% of people worry about making mistakes.
Wow.
So, if you're looking around, 90% of people are worrying about making mistakes, linking back to that negativity bias.
Yeah.
That's nearly all of the people in your organization or as an entrepreneur that you're worrying about making those mistakes, and therefore using cognitive bandwidth, brain space up, worrying about that rather than actually thinking about the task that they need to do, or using their cognitive bandwidth for problem solving. So confidence is such a massive, massive part of whether or not how you can free up performance within an organization. So I've been working with an Australian company called AV Jennings. The CEO is Phil Kearns. So he was a Wallaby captain, so the Australian rugby team. He's who I interview in the book. And he brought me in to run the corporate coaching on the neuroscience of confidence that I do. He brought me in firstly to focus on their women. He wanted to really give them some next level training to really help them develop. But the feedback, they loved it so much. He was like, well, hang on a minute, why shouldn't the guys have an opportunity to do this training too? And he was like, I want to have a confident organization. Because confident organizations he totally gets it. He's like, we'll take more risks. and good risk. People will speak up more, they'll challenge more. It links in with psychological safety where people feel safe to be themselves. And if you create an environment where people feel psychologically safe, and you have confident people who are going to bring their thoughts and ideas to the table, that what you can achieve is extraordinary. So it's been really interesting that what we've seen from that company. We saw a 22% rise in staff confidence and energy levels, and a 30% reduction in stress from the programs that I've done. And so if you've got less stress and you're rising in confidence, your brain isn't focusing on the negative, and it's actually thinking about problem solving, creative thought, strategic thought. And that's when you can actually really transform an organization.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, Kaz, before you go today, I wanted to ask you a question. For those that are watching or listening, what's the key thing that you would share that you've learned about intellectual property from your journey?
I think the key thing is educate yourself. Certainly by doing the kind of things that you do. It's something you cannot assume, and can't just go, oh, it'll be fine. When you put so much work into building a business, don't risk it that you haven't taken the right steps. But, don't do that blindly. There are ways to educate yourself. Excuse me. And certainly, as I say, the stuff that in terms of your programs, your training is such an important part of that. And at least get the minimum done.
Yes.
Just, get the important things, tick, tick, tick. And from that place, then at least you can operate with confidence. And maybe there's some more nice to haves beyond that. Don't get too caught up in those things, but make sure you have those minimum. But you need to educate yourself to be able to understand what that is.
Yeah, definitely. So, Kaz, for people that are interested in looking at your course or looking at your book, is it all available for them to find from your website?
Yeah, so the website is brainpowered.com. The courses that we run, corporates, there's information on that. There's downloads and things on that. It's called Executive Authentic Confidence. And when for individuals, we run a course called Brain Powered Confidence. And so there's details people can sign up online. For the book, it is brainpoweredcoaching.com/confident. And they will be able to find the book there, and they'll be able to find it on Amazon as well.
Brilliant. Kaz, thank you very much for being my guest today. It's been lovely spending time chatting with you. So thank you everybody for listening, and thank you for coming along on the journey with Kaz and I, and we'll see you on the next show.
Thank you very much.
All right, speak to you soon. Bye. Thanks for joining us on the show. Like, follow and subscribe to make sure you hear about what's coming up next. You can head over to the website www.amanyaipcourses.com to find out more. See you again soon.